Hi, and welcome back to the Therapy Pages podcast, where we read, review, discuss therapy and self help books. I am April.
And I'm Dory.
So thank you for joining us. If this is your first time here, we talk about therapy books, self help books, and really any book that
hmm
we have
Yeah.
enjoyed or that we recommend to our clients. So this has been kind of a long time coming. We wanted to do a video and just talk about why we wanted to start the Therapy Pages podcast and what our reasoning was behind that. So just some of my thoughts. I know, well, Dory and I both love to read, so that is an important part. Obviously, if we didn't like to read, this would be tough to be reading all of these books. So we both really enjoy reading, and also a lot of our clients also really enjoy reading.
Mm.
And I know have been coming to me and saying, "Hey, I wanted to read this book. Do you think that this is helpful?" Or hey, do you have any ideas on books I could read that might help with this problem, that I've been having? So I just wanted to kind of expand my horizons a little bit more too and know more what's out there. I have so many books that I haven't even read, even on my
Oh,
in
yeah.
my bookshelf at work. So I kind of wanted to read some of those. Yes, we have so many. So reading some new ones too, and I just really think it's important to read, just to learn new things, to gain new perspectives on things. So
Yeah. Yeah, and to read things that might not you might not agree with, right? Or like different perspectives or reading just opens new horizons and it just like windows to other cultures, other ways of thinking, other ways of being, and I think a lot with some of the self-help books that we've talked about, I mean, you and I, and that we will probably review, just that even like mindfulness. So many people don't really understand mindfulness, and there's so many books out there about that. So even just that, it's a shift in perspective, or um, how to maybe frame anxiety or even trauma. Like I have a book over here called The Gift of Trauma, like even to be able to just reframe your thinking a little bit. So I think and that's the psychology self-help books, but I think other books, like one that we're going to be talking about Tuesdays with Maury, right? That's not necessarily a self-help book, but wow, it I don't know, gives you such perspective, I think, on life, right? So yeah,
yeah.
so I think reading opens, it really does open pathways, doorways, windows, so
Yeah, it does. It absolutely does. And we talked about it. Also, sometimes clients have the opposite experience where they were recommended
mm,
books that maybe they feel were not at all helpful for them.
right.
I know we've talked about a few of those too, and I think
Yeah.
it's good to have a balance. It's okay to talk about all of those books, which ones are helpful, maybe which ones we don't think are helpful. Um,
hmm
I don't know. We talked also about knowing that there's maybe some books in our lives that are kind of just like put there, I think for some reason. And we read them and it's like, hey, this completely relates to what I'm going through right now. And maybe other books, it's not the
Yeah.
time. So,
Yeah. Yeah. And that was absolutely um, when things fall apart, Pema, that we
yes.
talked about. That was definitely one of those books for me and for so many people, other therapists that I've talked to, other people, other posts, like, on our therapy pages, Facebook page, we follow some other, book posts, book lovers, or, therapy book pages. And a lot of people have said, this, well, and yes, about When Things Fall Apart, Pema's book, but also other books like this book found me when I needed it. And that, it's so true. And books that aren't therapy books that we can just fall into. Like it's just an escape. It's like a vacation, and some books wish I could read over again for the first time just because, it just took me away to another place. You get so engaged with the characters and things. So yeah, yeah, I think I do believe what that like books find you,
yes, I
you
think so
know?
too. Yeah. Yeah. And that's, a great point too, is knowing that, yeah, books doesn't have to necessarily be, be like identified as a therapy or self-help book, but it can be really therapeutic to read. And that also, it can be a vacation and just, an escape.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is also therapeutic, right?
It
So
is. Yeah. So, self-care. Yes.
yeah, bibliotherapy, book therapy. So yeah, I think and it doesn't have yeah, it doesn't have to be a therapy book. So, what's a book that you think changed your life?
Definitely, The Five People You Meet in Heaven by Mitch Albom.
Hmm.
And also, I was thinking the other day about, because I saw a local movie theater is playing the movie, and I've never seen the movie, but The Glass Castle. And I forget who
Oh
wrote
yeah.
that. I forget her name, but that book definitely was life changing.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I read that book, and that book reminded me of one of the first books that was required reading in my social work program, in my graduate program, Bastard Out of Carolina. Did you
Oh
read?
yes, yes, I have that book too. Yes, I think we read that in school as well. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that was really, yeah, yeah. And then A Boy Called It.
Yes, I was just thinking about that one too.
Hmm.
My very first social work professor, Dr. Hay, who has unfortunately passed away, was amazing. She was definitely life changing for me. But yes, we read that book in her class, and that one is a
Yeah,
really good one too. Yeah.
yeah, that was, and a lot of those. I started, this career as a therapist. I was a child welfare worker, so I did child abuse investigation. So a lot of those books, I could read. It's like, oh yeah, that's, that could be true. That like I could believe or not. But the Glass Castle, I think A Boy Called It. I think they really, like, there are real. Those are real. Like, they are real situations, and some of the experiences that I had as a professional in that, like, that they are really good depictions of that life. And that's an example of bringing out a life that you would never imagine, right? So, I mean, well, many people wouldn't imagine, but it also, I think, for people who experience it, validate it, right? So, like, wow, this
Yeah.
person really speaks for me. Yeah,
Yeah. Mhm.
yeah, yeah. Those were really powerful books for me. And I think we talked about before, when I was 19, and talking about when books find you, like, The Way of the Peaceful Warrior by Dan Millman, like, that really spoke to me. And it just, I think my 19-year-old self needed to hear that. And it really kind of set me on this path. Yeah. So,
Yeah. What about any books that maybe aren't necessarily therapy related, but that you really enjoy? Anything that comes up? I know for me, the first one is always The Hunger Games and Harry
mm,
Potter. Both of
mm-hmm.
those, I read the whole Harry Potter series and Hunger Games series in like a couple of days because I couldn't put them down. And that's I think pure vision of just escape, and like that just release self
Yes.
care and getting away from things.
Yeah. I read The Hunger Games because my daughter really, really liked them and wanted me to read them, and she was, early, probably preteen at the time, and I really enjoyed them. I really liked, I don't remember which one it is, but with the clock. Which one is that?
The Hunger Games.
Yeah,
I think that's the fourth one or
I
the
like
third
that
one.
one.
Yeah.
I like that one a lot. Um, but a book, like, recently, there's a couple that come to mind. One is The Midnight Library, and that's by Matt Haig. Oh my God, I love that book, and I recommend it to anybody. I'm in a book club, and that book, the book club was so divided. Like, people either hated it or they loved it, but there was really not any in between. Um, but the concept is, there's this midnight library, and you can go to, like, if you had made a different choice, like, alternate lives that you could live, or there's like parallel lives that you are living in this. So it's just super. I love that book. And I'm not usually like super into fantasy, but actually I guess Hunger Games is fantasy.
Yeah.
um so that's a book I read recently that I really liked. And then one that just moved me, and I really, I still think about. And then definitely one that I would like to be able to read again for the first time is The Women by Kristen Hanna. It's about a nurse in the Vietnam War, and it just was really, really moving. And it does go through PTSD and things like that, and how, what she went through. And so it's, it's, so I think I like historical fiction, and I didn't realize it. But yeah, yeah, so they were really good. Those were some recent reads. What else I recently read something else? I can't remember. that I just finished. It's funny reading on your Kindle, you don't see the title, so it's like you don't remember what the book is.
It will come back to you at
It
some
will.
point. Yeah. Yeah, I still read this from time to time, my favorite childhood book, A Wrinkle in Time.
Oh,
This will always
yeah.
be one of my favorites, and my mom recently has been cleaning out her house more and gave it to me, so I've been reading it again. So it always, like what you said, you don't have that same feeling as you do the first time reading.
Right, right. Well, and growing up, all the Judy Blume books, I
Judy
just
Blume, yes, we talked about that too. Yeah, we
just
have to
I
include
loved all the Judy Blume. I haven't read any of her adult books, but I think I
it. You know
read
what?
all of her, you know, coming of age books.
Yeah, you know what? I
Yeah.
haven't read those either, but yeah, my sister read all of the Judy Blume books and then gave them to me. So yeah.
Mhm.
And also, as you can see, I am obsessed with James Patterson. So anything
Yeah.
James Patterson, I will read.
Yeah. Yeah. He's got a huge following. Yeah.
Yes, he does. Yeah.
There's another book I wanted to mention. I can't think of. Um, oh, well, to go back to what we were talking about, like books that we would recommend and not recommend. Um, one book, and this is kind of controversial, I think, because so many therapists that work on trauma do recommend this book, but I don't, and I don't. I think I don't know. It's The Body Keeps the Score. Like maybe after therapy and like after people have dealt with some things, but I've had clients come in and say, "Oh, I was seeing a therapist," and like just starting to work on their trauma, and they, were told to read this book, and that's not my go-to recommendation, but I mean some people have liked it, some people I just think it's a little heavy and can be it's not that it's an academic book, but I do think it's research heavy. Like I do think there's a
Yes.
lot of, um and I think it can be intimidating to when you're just starting to open up your trauma. So that's one that I usually don't recommend.
Yeah, I would agree. And anytime we talk about trauma, at least I think for me, and you probably would agree, is the first step is developing coping skills and to know like what can
Absolutely.
you do, right, with those feelings that you have. So if you're someone who's new to therapy and you're just jumping into reading The Body Keeps the
Yeah.
Score, it cannot be good.
Yeah, it can be, I hate the word, but it can be triggering, right?
Yeah.
So,
Mhm.
yeah. Yeah. So learning some skills. So, what I might do is I might recommend anything by John Kabat-Zinn because I think he's approachable, readable, and as far as coping skills, one of the things with trauma I think is like understanding how your body's feeling, and mindfulness does that. So, John Kabat-Zinn is a huge mindfulness proponent and educator and researcher, and so his books, although not what is it, full catastrophe living. I don't usually recommend that right off the bat, but I do recommend that down the road also. That's his um, mindfulness based stress reduction book. Kind of has the whole thing in there. So, but like mindfulness for beginners, because I think that helps you with coping skills. What do you think?
Yeah, definitely. And actually, we have been. I know you and I have been talking about stress leading into the
Oh,
holidays, so that might be maybe a good one to maybe to read and do a review on too. But
yeah,
I kind of didn't
yeah,
think
that's
about
true.
that one.
That is a good idea. Yeah, or any of it. So there's another. I always mess up the title. Wherever you go, there you are. Is that what the title
I think,
is?
yeah,
It's
something
over
like
there in my
that.
bookcase.
That sounds
But
about right.
that's a good one. And that talks about like mindfulness, I think, in everyday, like everyday living, like just walking or brushing your teeth or, and other things. But yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Other things you yeah, either recommend or wouldn't recommend to clients. I'm thinking of anything Brene Brown. You know how much we love her. So I
Right.
would always
Right.
recommend that. I really have been, even, since we did the recent episode on Alice of the Heart, I've been recommending it more just for people who are just starting therapy and maybe don't know
Mm.
how to express how they're feeling or how to identify emotions. I think that's a really good one to start with.
I agree. And as we were talking about it and I was looking at it again, it really is like um the emotion wheel, which a lot of people know, like they see
Yeah.
the emotion wheel, but this book is like the emotion wheel, like just really explained, and the way that it's, broken down into different types of emotions, right? So yeah, yeah. I think it's a great book for anybody. It should be mandatory reading for anybody, like any human being, like to understand their emotions. Because she
Yeah.
says it's so clear. And if you can listen to it, that's even better because I think her voice is just, she's funny and it's soothing. And yeah, so I think that's a great book. Yeah.
Yes, I agree. I also really like Adult Children of Emotionally Immature Parents. I know we had we talked
Uh,
about doing this one too.
mm-hmm.
I recommend this one
Yeah.
often too, just because I really love that there's no blame, getting to a
Yeah.
place of not blaming anyone or having resentment, but kind of acceptance too.
Yeah. 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 What are some other, so I've recommended Brene Brown. I've recommended a lot of John Kabat-Zinn. Almost always it's Mindfulness for Beginners is one of my first. And then I use, I recommend some workbooks. There's a workbook called oh, it's right over there. Uh the Anxiety and Phobia Workbook. And that is a workbook, but I recommend that to a lot of people because again, it's like it breaks things down, it explains emotions, and it explains what your body's going through. So in a really approachable way. Not like, The Body Keeps the Score, I think is a great book, but I think sometimes it's just a little too much. So yeah, that's a book that I would recommend.
Yeah, and I
Um,
think even some of the workbooks are really good to recommend for someone who is going through the therapy process and working on
mhm.
skills with the help of a workbook. Biased, but also DBT, anything Marsha Linehan. But I think
Yeah.
the DBT skills are hard to kind of understand and work through those workbooks if you're not doing it with a therapist. So I think that's
Yeah.
important to think about too. Some workbooks are great if you just want to go, buy one and do it yourself, but there's others that might be more helpful to work through while you're in it.
Yeah. And I think a lot of if you go to the self-help section of Barnes and Noble or any bookstore, I think you're going to see a ton of workbooks. And I do think, yes, you can do them on your own, but I think if you do it with a professional, um it's just added support, and it helps to, if there's any question, it helps to clarify rather than going on AI, which is a whole nother podcast we're going to be doing, right? So, rather than going to some other, maybe not expert source, that has experience with dealing with actual people and things. So,
Yeah.
because a lot can come up in working. I mean, even really benign workbooks, even just like, DBT is skills, right? It's all skills based. Even those workbooks can bring some stuff because there's a lot of DBT workbooks. There's DBT for depression, DBT for anxiety, which I have had clients use, and we've gone through them together, and I think they can be really helpful. But yeah, there's that caution. I think, maybe talk to a professional at least at some point, going
Right.
through it.
Yeah. Hmm.
And
Yes.
therapy's so accessible now. You can do it, get on telehealth with anybody. And so,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, the self I recently went to Barnes and Noble and was looking in the self-help section, and it's kind of wild, all the books that they have, that I'm like, "Oh, that's interesting." So,
Yeah.
I know we talked about some newer books that are kind of trendy, and our
Mm.
thoughts on some of those. So maybe we might do, an episode on some of those too, like the
Yeah.
Mel Robbins book.
Mel Robbins, yeah, that came to my mind. Like Mel
The Let Them
Robbins. And
theory,
yeah.
have some issues with that one. So,
Yeah. Well, and I think a lot of people do. I think people who, and this is my take, and I have not read the book. I've read parts of it. I've not read, so full disclosure, but I have talked to people and I've read about it, and I've read people's responses about it. And a lot of people feel it is invalidating to true trauma, like to people who have
mhm.
really gone through something really difficult, not just, oh, that person was mean to me, but maybe like some significant trauma. That it can be invalidating. Now there could be other people who felt completely validated and got a lot out of it, but that was one, um, I guess, kind of a thing that I heard over and over, like in reviews that I was reading and people who I've talked to about it. I have one friend who I mentioned we were going to talk about it, the maybe potentially on the podcast, and oh my god, like she was like, oh my god, I can't even look at that book, I can't stand it, I can't stand her, she
Yeah.
simplifies everything, like went off. I'm like, okay, well, I guess maybe that's not the one for you.
And I think, I mean, that she said it right there. She kind of simplifies everything, and it's not,
Hmm.
yeah, there's no kind of no balance. Again, I didn't read all the book either, but so maybe we can plan to talk about that one more. But
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, so there are some books too that are not helpful, and I think that's kind of
Hmm.
why we really wanted to start this too, and just kind of like letting you guys know that there's some really good information out there, and some really great books, and there's some really bad information out there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
kind of, yeah,
And and some information that might be good, but it really, like, you need a discerning ear, and you need, like, maybe somebody to help you walk through it, because it some books or some information that's out there, it can be misconstrued, or so taken, I guess, maybe taken lightly or taken to an extreme or something like that. So yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but so many great books out there that I loved, and that I think have, eh, you know, stayed with me. And I think that's one thing I really like about books, that they can stay with you, you know?
Yeah, mhm, absolutely. Yeah, I
So,
also just remember too, one of my a really good book I read recently, I think, well, a little bit after the pandemic, was The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, and that one
oh, yes, I
really
read that.
that one really affected me in a lot of ways. It was really helpful for me to kind of maybe, like, let go of some things that I don't need to worry about. Um,
Exactly.
so I really like that one as
Yeah.
well. And the pow we talked about The Power of Now,
Yeah.
yesterday
Which I
too.
have not read all of, but I have a client who I've seen her for years, and every time she's going through everything, she reads that book again. I mean, she's probably read it like 15 times. So yeah, yeah. Eckhart Tolle, I think, has a huge following. So we should probably do one of those books coming up.
Yeah, yeah, agreed. Yeah, and we can also maybe some of the books that we talked about today. We can maybe just write a list or some links, in the comments or something like that, so that you guys can see them too, if you missed,
Yeah,
missed any of that.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
mm,
I would love to have any listener engagement as our audience grows, and as more people, maybe listen even for a couple minutes. Like, just recommend some books for us,
yes,
or
please
join.
recommend them.
Yeah, join the conversation, because I think that's why we wanted to do this. To open up dialogue and conversations about reading and about books, and how they can be helpful, and what to look out for.
Yes, if you have any ideas, recommendations, you think we could do an episode on a book, or I just read this really good book and I think it was helpful,
Yeah.
just let us know. We'll do it. We'll add it to our ongoing list.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and it's been fun. I mean, I think, obviously we just started, and we're still, kind of working out some kinks, and, but I think it's been fun, and just even having setting aside the time to talk about books for any reason, I think is good. And it gets me thinking, "Oh, I want to read that then. I want to read, or, oh yeah, I forgot about that. I want to read it again."
Yeah, definitely. And so, yeah, our next episode, we're going to be doing Tuesdays with Maury by Mitch Albom. So, which we
Right
both have
here.
read. I've read that a very long time ago, so I'm
Yeah.
excited to reread it and talk about it. If you
Yeah.
want to read it, from now until then, probably in a couple of weeks, we'll do that episode.
Mhm.
So if you want to read it until then, you can feel free to join in.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, I'm looking forward to reading this again. Again, like one of those books that you wish you could read for the first time. I wonder if it'll feel that way, because it has been a really long time.
Yeah, I read it in grad school. So
Mhm. I think that's when I did, and that was a long time ago. So, yeah.
mhm.
Well,
Awesome.
great.
Well, thank you for joining us, and we will hope to see you guys soon. Again, if you have
Yeah.
any books to recommend, let us know. Thanks for listening.
Yeah. Stay tuned and engage,
You
and keep
too.
reading.
Keep reading. Bye.
Bye.